Oh, we will call this senior council meeting to order. And thank you all for being here. It is standard practice to take all your call. So Sharon Belfi, I'm here.
Sue Bell, present.
Jennifer Spalding, present.
Richard Doyle, present.
Ladies?
Kara Cassidy, Public Health.
Yep.
Jessica Jones, Public Health.
Okay. So we go into what? Petitions, proclamations, suggestions. We're going to do upcoming events. Is that what we're doing?
Well, first I'll see if anyone from the committee has anything to say, complain, any of the above about. If you've heard anything from the community, please feel free to share that now. Otherwise, you know that you're more than welcome to share throughout the committee meeting. But if nothing, then I'll just move right into
Sharon and I were talking what a nice event Saturday was in Victoria, and it was really nicely done. And also went to the food truck gathering yesterday at Lions Park. A lot of families. It looked like it was a very successful event.
Yes, I think, what did we count? 5 food trucks there. They had a big bouncy house. Mm-hmm. They were playing, what do you call it, bean bags?
They had the
Bags.
tournament, yeah.
Yeah.
So Victoria did good over the weekend.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, I'd like to mention hands-only CPR is coming up. And registration deadline for May 14th is on the 7th coming up. And I'd like to really recommend that because I've taken it a couple of times since I moved here, and it is really, really good.
And where's it at?
Should be in the fire station, I believe.
Is at the fire station. I have it up on the screen on the top, the first bullet.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, I didn't mean.
Nope, you're good to go, Richard. You feel
Yeah, 'cause
free
I
to
was
take
gonna
the
look
show.
at the date.
Yeah, that will be at 6:30 at the Victoria Fire Station. And yes, you can register online. Otherwise, you can call the Victoria Fire Department's main line, and they'll help you with the registration too. And it is free, so no harm if you sign up and participate. There's no money coming out of your pocket for it. Well, in other events, since we're on that topic, we do have a couple donuts in Victoria that are coming up. Just to get on your calendars, if you know of anyone that might be interested or you're interested in yourself. May 21st, we have our rainbow tree care coming out to talk about just general tree care maintenance and just saving ash trees in Victoria. Rainbow Tree Care, we contract with them to do treatment of the city's boulevard ash trees to help protect them. They do tree, why am I blanking? But they go through the process of treating the trees every 3 years in Victoria. And then they also do a discount for residents that want to also treat their trees if you use Rainbow Tree Care. So it's a wonderful program. We're excited to have them. And like I said, they're just going to talk about just overall health of trees and how you protect them and other diseases that might be coming out as well. Because as soon as the ash ones are done, we know that something else is going to get on our radar. The next one, June 18th, is the Lending Library is coming out. That's a partnership program with Carver County Environmental Service. So what it is they kind of have like a warehouse where you can just rent different type of materials, tools, yard games, a little bit of everything. So it'll be really interesting to hear about their program. They're new within the last year or so. So it'll be interesting to hear about them and just also promote them as well. And then the last one we have, at least on the screen, we do have these booked for the rest of the year, but is in July, and it's Protecting Our Waterways, and that will be run by the city. We'll have our water team coming out and just talking about the environmental impact of our water, why we want to make sure that we're protecting our waterways, the importance of stormwater ponds, as well as just limiting watering your grass and why that's important. We also have a Medicare course that's coming up tomorrow at 11 a.m. if anyone's interested in that, and that will be at the Victoria Recreation Center. That is also a free activity.
I have a question.
Of course.
Where are the donuts in Victoria held?
Ooh, good question. Those are held also at the Recreation Center.
Okay.
We already talked about hands-only CPR, so I'll skip that one. Straight into Bingo in the Park. That will be a June activity. We'll hold that at Wasserman Lake Preserve. You can register online. Otherwise, we do have paper applications at the Recreation Center, or you can call them and they can help you with registration. And then the last one I wanted to highlight is our concerts in the park. We're now calling them Live by the Lake, but they're coming back to our summers. So every Wednesday, starting June 4th, if you show up to Bayfront Park or the Charleston Dune Bandstand, there'll be a live music playing from 6 to 8.
A couple years ago, you had magnets with the dates. Was that a one-time thing? Or?
The car show does the magnets, so we should see those coming out soon.
Oh,
But they have the concerts as well as the car show. Okay, thank you.
And that will be the second week in June that they're going to be starting that up. I believe that's June 11th, but I'd have to check calendars too.
the car show.
Yep, so that's every other Wednesday. Any questions from the committee?
A couple years ago, when we were talking about, what is that called, Village Green, or the new complex, the apartments, and then, was it Victoria or West, where we were talking about or envisioning what that space might look like. At one point, wasn't there some talk about maybe having an area for concerts as well, or has that been further developed? What was it called, Village Green?
Great question. So what, Sue, you were mentioning is downtown West.
Oh.
So it is about 13.5 acres that the city owns, just slightly west of here, somewhat north of the Dairy Queen. And that site is made to be the future, or like an expansion of Victoria's downtown area. And there is discussions, and part of phase 1 is to develop a central green, is what we call it. That space could be really turned into anything. I don't think we've identified what that could be yet. Concerts are definitely an option. However, since we have the great bandstand, we might not want to be competing with ourselves. So trying to identify what else could be used in that space, whether that could be like a future farmer's market space or a future trail connection. So many different options because it is a pretty substantial green space. And it will be right next to where those apartments are currently being built. So more to come on that.
Thank you.
And then with that, I have a slide just for Carver County.
Right on. So good morning again, Kara Cassidy with Carver County Public Health. I'd like to introduce Jess Jones. She's one of our newest coworkers in public health, and her focus is on emergency preparedness, community engagement. So she's just interested in getting to know the community and listening to hear what people in the community think of as emergency preparedness needs. And do you want to say anything, or?
I think you covered it. Thanks for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
So she's on the tour with me to get to know the county a little bit. So it's fun for us. I don't have any like gloom and doom statistics for you because it's May and most of our respiratory illnesses have gone by. I did want everyone to know that May is Older Americans Month, if you didn't know. And a couple of fun facts that in 2020, about 1 in 6 people in the United States were age 65 and over, but in 1920, that number was less than 1 in 20. And in Minnesota, 90% of older adults live independently in their own homes. And more than 1 in 4 adults aged 65 to 74 are still in the workforce. And 39% of Minnesota adults over 65 reports volunteering in the past year. So I thought those were all fun facts. And that's all I have other than beware of the ticks.
Yeah. That'll be our next season. Line.
Yeah, there you go. So thanks for having us.
It's nice to meet you.
At one point when in a past life or another job, we had Carver County Public Health or Emergency Preparedness come in and do a presentation. That could possibly be a good one for maybe donuts or something. And they brought some really cool little kits too. And it was very well received when we presented it in Chan at one point.
We can coordinate on that.
Yeah, we can coordinate on that, yes. And we are going to do a presentation to the Chanhassen Communities of Belonging in September. So we will have a little bit of a roadshow that we can
Okay.
bring to Victoria as well.
Oh, there you go. Mhm. So then how are we doing?
We will go right into the minutes. Chair?
Into the approval of the minutes? Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. We have, with that, can you provide the committee with a summary? Oh, you already did that. Approval. We will move on to our next item, which is approval of the committee meeting minutes. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve the April 7th minutes.
Sue does.
I'll second.
Richard? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries then. Are we gonna, do we have new business, old business? We
We don't
do
have any
that?
old business, but we do have 2 items for new business.
New business.
Yes. The first one is item 6.1, which is to review the walkability study. You might remember this is something we talked about last month, and we said we would bring back some ideas for the committee to kind of develop into a outcomes and priorities list, to then further develop into a formal walkability plan that we'll bring to Parks and Rec Committee. We'll probably bring it back here as well, but then bring back to the Parks and Rec Committee as well as City Council to get something more formalized that will help us create timelines, apply for grants, and just really get the work started based on the walking audit that you all conducted last year. So with that, I'm just going to highlight some of the objectives and priorities that staff developed from hearing the survey that was conducted last year, as well as the asset feasibility study that you all conducted when you did your own walking trail studies. So the first one is to promote our routes as well as our trails. That was a key one that we heard from the committee as well as others is needing to really improve upon. After doing the walking routes, we did put it on our website as well as been trying to promote it through social media. However, there's always ways for us to improve. In some ways that we discovered that we could do that through the committee was we could develop different themed routes that could be kind of more of like a tourist destination or just a way for people to engage with the routes. So things I think David has mentioned on the committee was maybe you have like historic markers, you could do art walks, like just those various type of things that will help get people out and about and walking on these trails. Also creating an online map portal was something that was discussed at the committee level, whether that's utilizing Google Maps, All Trails, whatever that might be, so that people, instead of utilizing a paper map or going on the city's website and downloading the routes, they can just quickly find it on their phone. And then they can also navigate the routes in real time. We know that navigation can be a challenge, so making sure that getting wayfinding in multiple different areas will be important. The next one we have is host engagement events to promote the paper routes. So I think that's something that we're actually going to get started with this summer is hosting engagement activities and having the committee be part of that. And then obviously we'll have the paper routes there, so then people can obviously take them and then they can walk them on their own if that's something they're interested in doing. We also talk about promoting the routes that include the trail amenities and features. This is something we talked about last time. So even on the digital website or any paper materials, making sure that trail difficulties are listed, amenities are listed, if there's parking, if there's restroom access, and how do you access, what time the restrooms can be accessed. I think an example is we do have some trail heads at Lions Park. We obviously have the pavilion restrooms. They're only open during park hours, so making sure that's included on there. And then things like access to water fountains too, so people are aware before they even go what they can expect. And then develop programming to promote trails and healthy lifestyles. An example that was brought up at last meeting was something like a walking club, or like activities that can just get people engaged with the trails and then hopefully just explore the city all in general. Any questions on this kind of objective, thoughts, concerns, red flags I just point out at you all?
When you talked about in promoting trails and routes, and which includes trail amenities, will that include areas where there might be benches
we can make sure that benches are included on that. Yes,
Yeah,
I think
'cause
that's a great
we
idea.
brought that up too.
Well, and if we do have some more, like paper routes would be really easy to include, like, this is where a bench is, this is where a bench is. It'd probably be harder to do that if we do like a Google Maps, but I don't know if, I don't know, maybe we could figure something else related to that, or benches on mile marker, whatever, something that we could try to
Just
figure out.
rest area or somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have them at Lions.
I think it looks great.
Well, we can always go back to them if you start thinking through.
Okay.
The second one we have is enhance the visual appearance of our trails and sidewalks. Obviously, as the city of Lakes and Parks, and just being Victoria, we know that we want to differentiate ourselves from other communities, other suburbs, so making sure that's top of mind, and making sure that infrastructure follows that. So what we've included in this priority is ensure that all trails have accessible amenities. We talked about making sure that there's adequate bench placement, accessible tables, railings on boardwalks is a huge one that we've talked through. Can also include connecting to nearby locations, similar to how we talked in the first one about developing themes, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the whole route theme. If there's just an open area, there could just be a small bench that could also be something related to a stormwater pond, and it can talk about the importance of stormwater ponds, or a wildflower bed and the importance of that, and just really connecting it to the natural spaces, because a lot of these trails wind between open spaces and wetlands and all these fun natural corridors, and making sure we're connecting those areas to the trails and people that are walking through them. And then improve wayfinding maps and signage. We obviously know that's something that we definitely struggle with, so keeping that on top priority of when you're walking these routes, yes, you can do Google Maps, yes, you can have a paper route, but what's the most important is having signage that can also help direct you. A lot of times people don't even know that they might be on a city trail system or that these routes are theirs, so even just having a sign that says, this is what trail route you're on, and it might just show a map of, you know, the trail system overall or the area trails, are things that we can definitely develop and improve upon. And then develop concepts to reimagine trail spaces. So not necessarily connecting to the natural amenities, but more of those, what we call moments of delight. So maybe it's just a swing that's randomly alongside a trail, or some sort of play feature, like one of those cement dragonflies that kids can climb on. Just something small that, you know, people can interact with while they're also traveling on the trail system.
Ooh, treehouse, treehouse.
Tree houses we talked about too. Just for you.
Yeah,
Richard's tree house on there.
yeah, there you go.
Get many complaints on trails about dogs, and are there places, I know some places have the little dispenser with the bags for people to pick up dog waste, or is that something people should take more responsibility in rather than the city?
Yeah, I'll answer the first question. Do we get complaints? We have. It's not as frequent as you might find. And sometimes it's more specific to certain neighborhoods. And then we work with the HOA or whoever that might be to navigate through that issue, because they should be picking up dog waste. Council has taken the approach over the last few years. We haven't really talked through it recently because it hasn't really been brought up, but more or less that people with animals should also pick up and take responsibility for them. So yes, in other cities you might see dog bags scattered throughout. However, we choose not to do that because we think it should be the responsibility of the pet owner.
And you do have signs in some of the parks,
Yes, that do say
on
please.
some of the trails.
Okay.
It tells them.
And we do require in our parks that dogs are
Leashes?
Yes. I think it says at the bottom by law.
yes, it is in our ordinance.
Yep, I
It is
thought so.
required.
Yeah.
I know some other cities recently have been dealing with that issue of off-leash, on-leash. But so far, hasn't been something that we've heard of here. But it is getting warmer out, so we'll see. And then the last objective for you all to consider is ensure a well-maintained trail system. Obviously, we do have 25 miles of trails. That doesn't include the additional 25 miles of sidewalk that we also have in the city. So we do have an extensive trail and sidewalk system here, almost 50 miles of trail and sidewalk. We want to make sure that, as we're adding neighborhoods, as we're adding more trails, that we're still keeping an eye out and maintaining, the rest of the trails that are in our system, and making sure that we have the budget and the tools to do that. So ensuring that ordinances and regulations regarding trails and park spaces continue to be safe in what the community is looking for. So this is something that the Parks and Recreation Committee has talked about, is reviewing the Parks and Recreation Ordinance. Actually, the city overall is going through a city code modification. It's been a while since we've really looked at a comprehensive review of our city code book. I think like 1998 timeframe. There was a small revision, large revision in 2017, but that was more specific to zoning. So we're doing a real comprehensive dive into our codes. So part of that will be looking at specific areas like parks and recreation. Is this what actually we want? Are the park hours make sense? There's some weird language about Lions Park. There's like 3 different times the park closes depending on different situations. So cleaning up the language to also make it easier to understand and easier to read too. So that will be a big project that will be coming through this year, next year. Also, regularly assessing the trail gap priority list. This is something that the Parks and Recreation Committee takes on each year. So they go through, they do have I think 10 gaps that are on that list right now. They might be a little less now with the Arboretum Area Transportation Plan project coming through. But making sure those gaps are, one, identified, that's huge, but then also ranking them at a level of priority. And they go through that to see if there's anything missing. That's really the big key here, is like, what spaces do we not have on this list? If there's development happening, whether that's housing development, whether that's transportation development, those are prime opportunities to get those trail gaps fixed. If we don't know that they're there, it's really hard to get those fixed in time. So making sure that they're identified, because then we can get them on the list and say, okay, Highway 5 is being redone. Let's make sure that we get this connection through there, because this will be the perfect time to do it. We don't want to come back 5 years later, 3 years later, and now have to, modify the whole road system all over again. And then I guess that kind of goes with that, the work with Carver County to address city trail gaps through the Arboretum Area Transportation Plan. And I believe there's at least 2, there might be 3 that will be completed as through that project. One is Bavaria Trail, which has been a project for years now. There's also a trail gap if you are over by, trying to figure out how to describe it, but if you're over by Madeline Park, which is kind of closer to the east side of Victoria, on the other side of Highway 5, there's just a trail that ends and it goes to nowhere. I think there's just a sign there that says, "You're at the end of the trail. Congratulations, you made it," and you don't go anywhere else. So there's going to be an underpass to that, so you can actually get to the park from the trail system, and then that trail system on the north side of the Highway 5 also connects to the Lake Minnetonka Regional Trail. So it's actually a big connection for residents south of town to get to the Lake Minnetonka Regional Trail without having to cross Highway 5. And then there's going to be another one. This is going to be an overpass from downtown to 78th Street. So if you're heading west into town, like from Chanhassen, there's that Welcome to Victoria sign. It'll be right at that location. So there'll be an overpass bridge right there that will connect, again, downtown to that whole other section of Victoria that we currently don't have. So at least 3 of them off the top of my head. I think there's a 4th one that I'm missing, but we're checking them off as we go. And then for another item related to Objective 3 is create a trail replacement plan to establish timelines for large maintenance needs. This is something we do for our parks pretty regularly. We look at our parks, we do a large assessment, and we plan 10, 15, 20 years out of Lions Park needs a new or replacement for their tennis courts. We want to make sure that that gets scheduled so then we can budget for that appropriately and slowly be putting money aside so we can do that in cash rather than having to bond for these large projects. And that's just one example. We do it for all of our assets within our parks. trails are a different story, and we want to make sure that we're actually doing that the same way. So looking at it as an assessment and saying this trail area was done in 2019, depending on like maintenance level of it in the area, just because elevation and those things make a difference. We want to make sure this is on a 10, 15, 20, whatever that cycle is. We want to make sure that that trail is listed out of being needing for replacement or crack sealing or resurfacing or whatever that is. So then again, it's budgeted and we can actually have it there instead of it being more of like an emergency need. And then the last one is pretty generic, but that's just continue to maintain like regular maintenance of our trail network. And that's something we heavily rely with our public works team on, is just making sure that they're cleaned, that the trees that are next to it, they obviously pop up onto the trail because that's just what happens. Nature is nature. Making sure those will get fixed, potholes are addressed, large cracks get sealed, just the general maintenance that keeps our trail system as wonderful as it is. And that is all I had for this item. Does the committee have any thoughts, questions, concerns?
I have one question. What is the Arboretum Area Transportation Plan? Is that the Highway Fire?
Yes, that is the Highway 5 project.
Okay.
It's the Highway 5 project in like a larger scale term. Carver County, in partnership with all the cities in the Arboretum, did that
what
larger,
they named it.
Yep, they did that larger plan. So it's that whole corridor. So we're talking Rolling Acres, 82nd Street. Obviously, Highway 5 is a big piece to that. So it's just that whole conglomeration of making sure Highway 5 works.
Okay.
Good question.
I'd like to say I love the sign at Lions Park. I think they have a new sign.
Yeah, they do.
It's true, yes. We're
That
slowly
looks
getting...
really professional and nice. Thank you for that.
Yeah, it's very nice.
I haven't quite seen it myself. I know that it just came up last
It
week.
looks, yep, it looks fine.
Well, and I mentioned there's a new one at the Recreation Center for detail.
Detail.
Yeah, they're very nice looking.
So that was an initiative that we took last year. So the council created a park system plan, very similar laid out to what we're looking at today. And that also had like guiding principles for us. And one of the items on there is to truly, very similar to, not necessarily enhance the visual appearance, but really make sure Victoria looks like Victoria. And when you're in Victoria, you know that you're in Victoria, and also that we don't have really good wayfinding within our park system in general. And our signs are hodgepodge, and a lot of our parks don't have signs, which is a problem. And some of them have been vandalized, stolen, broken down. So getting a comprehensive park sign look was something that was a priority. We ended up using ARPA dollars, so American Rescue Plan dollars, to pay for those signs, so we didn't even have to use taxpayer resources to do that. We were very fortunate to have some leftover ARPA dollars to pay for those signs. So we got the designs last year, went through the Parks and Recreation Committee, and then, yeah, this spring they'll be slowly popping up, and they'll be at every single one of our parks. So it's going to be pretty exciting. Different look depending on the size of the park. Lions and Detail are obviously our two largest parks in our community, so they get the more grander signs. Our small community parks, those little tot lots, probably don't need something as grandiose because they're in those smaller neighborhoods, but they'll still be an appropriate sign based on the size of it.
You know, being I'm in the neighborhood of Lions Park, it's hard now to get in and out of our development where I live, because when the Lions have events in that pavilion, and graduations are coming up now. And so we have many. Waconia, I mean, they come and use that pavilion because it's one of the larger parks. But the parking is hard because they park on the side of the street. And when we're coming or going, if I'm gonna come down to my establishment to go into it, even enter it, a car coming this way, you can, I mean, you don't even have a space to pull over for that car coming towards you, because
They allow parking on both sides of the street?
no, just one, but we have the SUVs and pickup trucks. It's hard to get by them. And there's times we can't even pull over. I mean, you gotta just stop in the street.
Right, and that's something, we've been working, the individual renters, like the graduation parties are a little bit more challenging to work with, but the Lions is a group that, we talk with pretty regularly, and when they're doing those big events, like the food truck fest that was
Yeah.
this Sunday, or we know they have their softball tournament coming up
Right.
this summer of, what does parking look like? You're drawing a lot of people. Can you partner with St. Victoria Church across the street, making sure you're not disrupting the neighborhood as much? We are hoping, previously we didn't have a sign at Lions Park. There was no directional, like, hey, this is where Lions Park is. So that larger parking lot, not just the pavilion parking lot.
Yeah.
We're hoping that will assist people in understanding that there is a whole bunch of parking over on this side. We know that if you know about the parking, you're going to park there. But it's the out-of-towners that we want to make sure that understand that
That might help a lot.
park is there. But we've also, we're trying to get better at communicating with our community partners to say, we want these events, they're really important, but we got to make sure that we're still protecting the safety of our residents and visitors. So, as I think that's a great note, Sharon.
Yeah, well, it's something, in the winter months, it's not so bad, but now it's gonna be.
Yes, for the next couple of weekends, I'm sure it will be busy.
But that will help with directional signs, that whole big parking lot back there sometimes is empty, and they're all on the street. Thank you, that helps.
So like I mentioned, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this, we're gonna make it into like a larger formal document that will have things like, and I think we looked at them a little bit last month, things like what are our trail gaps, we'll have the walking routes listed on there, and then if the committee is comfortable, we can bring this back for future discussion, or we can just go right to Parks and Rec to see if they have any insights, and then eventually we can bring it to City Council. So it's really up to you guys if you want this to be brought back at a future meeting, or if you're ready to see if other committees have any feedback. And if they do, we can always bring it back to this committee as well.
I personally think it's very well done, and it addressed things we've talked about the past couple meetings. So to take it to the next level, or the other committees, I myself would feel comfortable with that. Do we need to make a motion? Okay.
And like I said, if there's substantial changes, we'll make sure it gets brought back here. And then obviously once it gets to that, future stages, we'll do timelines. There might be some budget pieces that we'll want to pull together related to this, because really what this will help us do then is apply for grants to get some of these projects done, especially the wayfinding. Carver County, since they're in the room, does a wonderful job with SHIP grants to really help promote healthy lifestyles in the community. We received a grant from them last year in 2024 to install, I think, 27 additional park benches within our community. Maybe it was, I think it was $27,000 worth of park benches, not 27, not 27 park benches. I had to think about that for a second, but still a substantial amount of park benches that will help us, that did help us replace some of our older benches, the ones that didn't have like good support on the back or didn't have armrests. That really makes it challenging if people are trying to get up or actually want to utilize the bench. And it also helped us put benches in areas that we didn't have them before. So this will help us do more of that in different ways. So thank you guys so much for working on this project with city staff and really taking an ownership on this. This is going to be huge for us moving forward. Great. Well, Sharon, I have one more item for you.
Oh. Review the summer engagement events.
This one will be a quick
We were
one.
talking about that. Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that this was on your radar. Obviously, we've been talking about it for the last couple of meetings, and we talked about it quite a bit at the last one as well. But I just wanted to talk through it because this will be the last meeting we have before we jump into summer events. And I wanted to make sure that if the committee has any thoughts, concerns, whatever, that we talk through them. So I first have the dates listed on here. I think I've sent all of that information already out, and you've all signed up for your own dates to participate in these. So I'll make sure that gets sent out again after this meeting with everybody's name attached to them. And since I will be out during the summer, We do have a new events coordinator that's going to be joining us in May. They will be your main point of contact, and they'll be reaching out to you about scheduling, making sure that it's a reminder, letting you know where to go for for these. So you'll see emails come across from, his name is Nick. So you'll see Nick's email pop up to you. And I've provided them all the information already ahead of time. So all that stuff is ready to go for them to take on. The other more logistical piece to note is that because this is a committee event, we did provide notice, or we will be posting notice that the committee will have a quorum at these events. And then we also did officially cancel the senior committee meetings for June, July, and August. So that is also going to be posted as well. So more of that logistical open meeting list stuff that we talked about last meeting, that will all be taken care of well ahead of time. So don't be sleeping and thinking about that stuff. That will all be done. So yes, I just had the events up here, but just to list them off quick, I'm not going to go into too much detail. Like I said, I'll follow up on an email with the list of who's all going to be, or who was already signed up for that. If anything changes, feel free to reach out to me. Obviously, if I'm gone, you can reach out to Nick as well. But we have the park pop-up event. This one will be at Huntersbrook Park. This one will be in tandem with the Parks and Rec Committee. They are also looking at what potentially could be, that's a brand new park, what could potentially be at that park. And with that, they'll be hosting different type of games, activities, just things to get people there. They're also looking at food trucks, ways to just invite the community out to the park and get insight. Next one is Classic Car Night, so that will just be right downtown. Location to be determined, but it won't be down by the bandstand, it will be up by the action, so don't worry about that piece. And that one will just be our traditional Classic Car Night. And we also have a trail pop-up event. This one will be at Lions Park. Thank you, Jessica. This one we'll just do in the morning. So, I think I have it 6 to 8 p.m. It is in the morning, so I apologize for that error on the screen. I think it might be at 10 o'clock, but I'd have to check. But that one will probably hand out coffee and just greet people that are walking their dog or enjoying the trail in the morning.
You'll redo the time though on our
Yeah, I will. If I don't, that will be a problem.
I believe it's from 9 to 10 a.m.
Thank you, Kara. So yes, 9. And then we have another park pop-up event. This one's at Marsh Hollow, another new park. This will also be in participation with the Parks and Rec Committee, and they'll also be doing games, looking at bringing a food truck in, just really to get the community there. And then the last one is the Farmers Market. That one will be at Inky Brewing. They are currently being bought out by what's called Omni Brewing, and they're working on getting the Farmers Market. If that changes by any means, because they are going through transition, we will let you know about that one. But yes, so we'll have a new partner as part of our Farmers Market this year. That will be fun. Yes.
We also have the ball games, the city too, take me out to the ballpark.
That is a good
That's
to
coming
know.
up.
Victoria Vicks is our hometown baseball team. They have their games coming up. I believe their first one might be at the end of May. They usually take high school and college kids, so they have to wait for their players to come back. If you are looking for dates, Victoria Vicks has a wonderful Facebook page, but all the games are also listed in the Parks and Recreation brochure. They do charge for the ticketing for those events, but it's pretty low cost and you can pay there. They also have concessions and things as part of that too. So when it comes to these engagement events, what we're planning on having for us is a few different type of community resources. We did work with the Senior Linkage Line, Minnesota Senior Linkage Line, to bring in some of their resources, things like Medicare 101 booklets, protect yourself from fraud flyers. They have kiosk cards for the Senior Linkage Lines, which is they're kind of like hot one phone number to ask any questions whatsoever related to the Senior Linkage Line or any of the resources that they have available. We also, from the city side, are going to be printing off our senior resource guides. We'll have Donuts in Victoria flyers. We'll have our walking routes, the walking path information and flyers. We'll have Parks and Rec brochures, of course. We also have our park maps themselves, like where our parks are located, so we'll include that. And then we talked about at a couple meetings back when we started implementing this, but having like an email newsletter sign up list. We have our digital newsletter that we have on our website, but making sure that people are aware of that and actually can sign up for it in person. So we'll have that list there as well. Carver County provided us a list of senior services that are within the county that people might be interested in. So we'll get that list printed off and have available. And then we're also working with the Victoria businesses to see if they have any special deals or anything, so we can make sure that those are included as part of the packet. So we also have like Victoria bags, giveaways, kind of those fun things as part of that. But is there anything else that the committee would like to see when it comes to resources or anything related to this booth? And if you think about something tomorrow or next week, you can always email me too, but wanted to give you guys the opportunity to talk through it today.
I'll just give a plug for the senior linkage line. I use it often, refer my clients to it, or people that call my office with random questions that I can't answer. I've had to use it myself personally for my family members, and it's just a tremendous, tremendous resource. And if they can't help you, they have other resources that they can direct you to.
That's good to know.
Very often you don't get a live voice, but they're very good about calling back.
They are, yeah.
Kara, from the county, is there anything that the county would like to add? And we can talk about this offline too, but I want to make sure that any information that you all have from public health gets included as part of this too.
Yeah, I think we're putting together some new communications materials specifically around what is public health, because this is a tough time for us. So if that's ready, we might have some of that out there for you.
Awesome. And if it's not at the beginning of the summer and it's for the August one, we'll include them too, whenever works for you guys.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts from the committee or additions?
Any other business?
And there's no motion there for that item either, so that will be the last part of the presentation. So if there isn't anything, yeah, we can move right into other business and see if anyone has any additions for today.
Any other business? No?
I do have one thing that I forgot. Carver County Parks sent me with some of their summer parks and recreation guides.
Mm-hmm.
And there is, specifically, they're really excited about their Nordic walking program for people over 50. That starts June 16th, and it will be, I think, once a week on Mondays, 10 to 11 a.m. And the locations vary at different Carver County parks. So I'll just leave these, some with you and some downstairs.
That would be perfect.
Okay.
Oh, that's
Do you know if they'll have poles available?
They do. They bring all the equipment that you need.
Thank you.
We'll let you lead with adjournment then.
So are we ready for adjournment? If there's no other any business? No? Okay. We're ready. We will move on to adjourn the meeting.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Anyone? Okay, motion made. All in favor?
Aye.
Sorry.
Woody's in favor.
Yes.
Aye, sorry. That was
Anyone opposed to closing the meeting?
We'll close. Thank you all.